Hello and welcome back. In this section we're going to start to look at the graphics tools within Excel 2010. We'll be particularly interested in how we can use them on our graphs and charts, but we're going to actually approach them from the general point of view of drawing graphics using SmartArt and the various other graphics tools within Excel 2010, because graphics can be quite useful just on an ordinary everyday spreadsheet to either illustrate a point, highlight a point, or just add interest to what can otherwise be a rather dull set of numbers. We're going to start with a very simple option for drawing a graphic. On the Insert tab in the Illustrations group there is a Shapes button, and if I click the drop down next to that you see a gallery of available shapes. Now each of these is drawn as a very small icon, but in fact when you draw them they can be pretty much any size that you want. They're arranged into categories, and I'm going to choose something from the block arrows category. I'm going to choose that shape there, which is a pentagon. Now when I click on pentagon I don't actually see anything except a crosshair cursor, and to draw the pentagon I click and hold the mouse down and then I draw the pentagon. Now I can draw it any size I like, and what happens when you draw an object like this is that Excel gives it an identifying name, and that name is shown here. This is actually called Pentagon 2. Now I need to point out one or two basic things which apply to all of the graphics that we're going to be drawing. First of all, the graphics really have nothing to do with the worksheet cells that are underneath them. If you format the worksheet cells, you put some numbers in there, format with color, it doesn't affect the graphics at all, and vice versa. Think of the graphics as something that sort of floats over the worksheet. Secondly, when you draw graphics you normally have an additional tab, or sometimes more than one tab, highlighted. Very often it will be with a label over the top saying Drawing Tools, and then you have a Format tab which you can use to actually format the graphic. Now this will give you options such as filling the shape. Note we've got a blue color here now. We could change the color. It will also give you shape style options, word art style options, and so on. You can also do things like rotate, align, change the shape, and so on. And we'll be looking at those features as we go through. Another point to bear in mind is that when you are working with graphics you very often need to resize them, and we're going to be using these sizing handles quite a bit. The sizing handles on the corners, generally speaking, maintain the proportions, the aspect of the particular graphic. The ones in the middle, this one for instance reduces the height, this one reduces the width, and so on. So that's a few general things to remember and a couple of general rules. Now some other general rules that we can use which take a bit of getting used to, but you'll find are going to be extremely useful. Let me just get rid of my Pentagon 2. When you're drawing or doing certain other things to shapes, there are various keys on the keyboard you can use to constrain what you're drawing in some way. Now let me show you a couple of examples of this. Back to the Insert tab, Shapes. I'm going to choose this rectangle shape, and I'm going to draw a rectangle, which is fine. Now if I hold the Shift key down and draw a rectangle, watch what happens. Insert, Shapes, Rectangle, Shift key. What happens now is that I get a square. And what the Shift key does generally when you're drawing anything is that it forces symmetry. Let's try a different shape. Let's try an oval. Draw an oval. Fine. Once again, draw an oval, hold the shift key down, we get a circle. So that's what the shift key does when we're drawing. Now, I'm not going to go through every shape and the effect of drawing every shape of holding the shift key down, but just to emphasize this point, the shift key will affect most shapes that you draw in terms of symmetry in whatever way is appropriate to that shape. Let me just show you one more example. If I try to insert, say, an arrow, I can very easily draw an arrow on a worksheet like that. Let me now insert an arrow again, but this time I'm going to hold the shift key down. I cannot draw an arrow at a strange angle. It will force it to be horizontal, or if I push it hard enough up, it will go to 45 degrees, and in fact I can move it in 15-degree increments just, but it won't do anything other than one of those regular increments. Obviously I can do it vertically. So that's the constraint offered by the shift key. Now the control key, on the other hand, offers a constraint of drawing from the center. So if I say wanted to insert an oval, I'm going to put the cursor right there on the junction between those grid lines, columns G and H, rows 12 to 13, hold the control key down and draw an oval. The oval is centered on that starting point. I can change the shape of it, of course, but it's centered on that starting point. So that's what the control key does. And if I now say try to insert a rectangle again, you can probably guess what the control key does, but if I hold control and shift down and draw, watch what happens. It's centered on that point, but it's constrained to be in square as well. So I can use both of those keys, control and shift, together. And one other important key is the Alt key, and what the Alt key causes as a constraint when you're drawing is it forces, as far as it can, that the drawing follows the grid lines, the worksheet lines on the page. So I'm going to insert a rectangle again, and I'm going to do it holding the Alt key down, and watch what happens. It won't draw a rectangle that doesn't keep to the cell borders. Now obviously with things like circles, you're talking about a different set of rules altogether, or ovals. Hold the Alt key down and it tries to keep as far as possible its edges, the extremes on the elliptical shape, aligned with the borders. Now, apart from the specific points that I've just made about using those keys to help you to be more accurate in producing good quality graphics, I'm going to assume from now on that you have some experience of graphics in Excel, and so really what we're going to concentrate on now is producing particular graphic effects or graphic objects to assist in the presentation of your data. So we're going to move along reasonably quickly, looking at the range of facilities that are available. Now, very often when you're looking for graphics to complement the presentation of some data, SmartArt will be the starting point. The facilities in SmartArt have been improved significantly in recent releases of Excel, and in Excel 2010 you've got a wide range of pre-packaged starting points. So we click on Insert SmartArt and we see a SmartArt gallery, which is arranged into categories, lists, process, cycle, hierarchy, and so on. And we can take each of these and we can customize it to our particular requirements. So let's choose an example from the list category, and we're going to try this particular one here. Now this is a vertical picture list, and within the SmartArt graphics in general there are generally two levels of text, a level 1 and a level 2. Some of the SmartArt graphics don't have any text at all and some only have one level. But if I take this particular one, we have text at both levels, so there's level 1 there. If I just click on it, I can type in the text that I want, and then at the second level additional text to follow. Now, having created this SmartArt graphic, there are a number of things I can do to change both its content and its appearance to suit my specific requirements. And we have a SmartArt Tools pair of tabs here. We've got a Design tab and a Format tab. On the Design tab we have a number of choices for layout, and there's a whole gallery here. I could, for instance, choose that one, and the text that I've already typed in is of course not lost, but the whole layout and shape of the SmartArt changes. Apart from being able to change the layout, I can of course change the style, so I could, for instance, choose a 3D version. The other notable thing here is that we have an opportunity to change colours, and there are a number of colour schemes available. We can go, for instance, for that one, and we can use these to match the other elements in our presentation. Now, note that there are several other facilities on this Design tab. One of them is that we can add a shape. So we could, for instance, noting that Ghana is selected, we can add a shape before, or we can add a shape after. I'm going to undo both of those. And we have a facility to move the selected item in the list down one, select one again, move it up. We can also convert a SmartArt graphic to shapes so that we can actually move, resize, or otherwise change any of the shapes within the SmartArt graphic. And we have a button here which says Reset Graphic, which basically puts it back to where we started from. Another very important facility for SmartArt is over here. If we click on Text Pane, we get a text pane that shows all of the text that we can type. We can actually use this for entering the text, and it also shows a facility to enter a graphic. Now, many of the SmartArt graphics can accommodate an image or some other sort of graphic, and you can either enter those by clicking in here, double clicking in here actually, or you can click in the area within this text pane and it automatically opens a dialog where you can select an image, in this case the flag of Ghana or part of the flag of Ghana, and clearly you could put the same image in for whatever countries are going to be in these other three parts of the SmartArt graphic. If you then change the layout, so for instance if I changed to that one, obviously the image is maintained as well as the text. So in this section we've had a quick look and a quick revision on some of the basics of inserting graphics onto a worksheet, and we've looked at the revised list of SmartArt graphics in Excel 2010 and a whistle-stop tour of some of the ways of changing layout, design, colors and so on. In the next section we're going to look at graphics in a broader context and some of the more advanced features of graphics in Excel 2010. So I'll see you then.